Folks, we're live. Boys and girls, Timmies of all ages. The live that everyone's been waiting for and asking for and begging for has arrived. We have PK. PK, I'll just throw it over to you, man. You wanted this. You reached out. I said, let's do it. Let's have an airing of grievances.
Yeah. No, me and you were talking a little bit before the live, and I kind of just told you a lot of the things I was thinking is I think a lot of people like they want the super spice, and the unfortunate reality to a lot of this is where a lot of our differences are, mine and yours, are probably a lot of the nuances of this hobby. And when you look at most of our overall takes, they really overlap most of them, because at the end of the day, this is Pokemon investing. You could only diverge so much before you're just so far out into the weeds that whatever you're saying makes no sense. But one of the things that you had brought up in a couple of your videos recently is you kept asking somebody to come on and explain to you or make it make sense why were base set booster boxes worth $800 when you got back into the hobby. And I think that is a great question. And that's when you put out there, you said, if anybody wants to come on and explain to me, why are base set booster boxes $800 when I get back into the hobby? I feel like I know the answer to that.
Let's hear it.
Yeah. And then I also told you, like, I think one of the problems is the nuances, right? Like, one of the things I find you say it often, and then I've heard other channels kind of parrot it too, is people say, after 5 years, every Pokemon booster box is above MSRP after 5 years. After 5 years, every Pokemon booster box is above $80. I've heard people say, after Pokemon booster boxes go out of rotation, they instantly start to go up. I've heard when people said when Pokemon booster boxes are no longer in print, they instantly go up. And then recently on one of your more recent videos, I heard you say, well, if you're getting into Pokemon booster boxes at $80, well, what's the worst that could happen? We've never seen a booster box lose 50% in value and go to $40. So what I'm going to do on this channel is say every single one of those statements is 100% factually incorrect. So, and this is one of the things I explained to you before this live too, is I love this hobby and I love the history of this hobby. And a lot of the times when you go back, you stop at XY 2015, which I get it. Like, that's when I was in the hobby. That's when you were in the hobby. That's probably real ingrained into our psyches. But, you know, one of the things you do often, and I don't love this comparison, is the comparing Pokemon to the stock market. And
Everyone
I don't
hates
like that.
I know. Everyone in this hobby hates that so much.
Yeah, but if somebody had a gun to my head and was like, PK, explain to me the Pokemon versus the stock market. One of the things a lot of people in the stock market often quote is, well, in the stock market, you can at least look at 50-year graphs, or if you could go real crazy and you go back to the stock market crash in 1929. And that's one of the things that those stock market people have, is that entire length of stocks. So in Pokemon, I'm like, well, we don't have 50 years, but we got 25 years. So I feel like that is a good thing, that we have a decent timeline. But when you only talk about XY, the present, it kind of hurts. It's almost as if, like, in the stock market, you only show like 15-year timelines. Maybe you exclude a 10-year timeline. That doesn't make that stock look as well. To that stock market person, I'd say, whoa, you can't do that. That's not fair. You got to look at the whole graph. And I feel like the same thing's true with Pokemon.
Well, here, let me respond to some of that and I'll let you go.
Yeah.
So if I ever say ever, I mean, I think most other people are the ones saying ever. I usually always caveat it by saying any modern box. If I mess up sometimes, it's a misspeak. But what I always mean is every modern box has never dropped below like the 70s and 80s. Maybe like some weird sale or some like flash, whatever. But like most every modern box, it levels out in the 70s or 80s at its lowest. And we've never seen a modern box drop in half, meaning since XY. And the reason I stop at XY is because that's when Pokemon gained its mainstream popularity. It had, Pokemon Go, the video game. It had Pokemon Evolutions. It had, that's when YouTube and social media really, became a thing around Pokemon. And I think everything just changed. And like, I guess my mindset comparing to stocks if you want to like make a comparison there, it'd be like comparing like Apple or Amazon or like one of those companies to like their early days, like their first 10 years, and be like, well, it went dead, or it was down there for like 10 years. It's like, that's never going to happen again. Like, these companies have now became behemoths. Like, that is never going to happen. And that's kind of how like it is with Pokemon. It's like, it's getting so much more mainstream popularity. Like, large money is coming in from like, big financial investors now. And it's really hard to compare a time when a hobby was completely almost dead to what it is now, to ever go back to that, sort of the way it is when like some of these companies were, at their infancy, and now what they are now, to look back and say, well, it could happen. It's like, not really. Not really.
Yeah. So a lot of what you said, I see this as a problem. These are the new, I agree with almost close to everything you said. I think the only difference is when you say the popularity came into Pokemon in 2015, while that is true from like a more, maybe a macro perspective, but there are periods in time that you can see where a ton of interest and a ton of demand comes into this hobby in those later years. And that like entering of demand and the entering of interest, and you could literally pinpoint these, and that's what I'm going to try to do for you in today's video, is pinpoint those moments, which I think it's super valuable.
But I mean, like, look at like Google Trends. Like, nothing like 2016's happened since COVID, but like, I mean, it's very clear looking at like a chart, like you can see it had more popularity then than ever.
Yeah, in a way, but
I mean, more than like, in a sense, maybe like 1999, 2000, but like, there might have been like small ups and downs during, up until 2015, but nothing like we saw when all that happened.
Yeah, we see, this is the thing, and I want to pull up some of this data, because one of the things I always say, I talk about this on my channel a lot, is history always has this funny way to repeat itself. And I'm going to show you some of these original prices and some of these graphs. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go from 2004, we're going to go up to 2014, right to where you could take over from 2014. And just to kind of give people like a good snapshot. And I'm going to pull up all the prices of different products. We can look at booster boxes. None of this is going to be made up. So for this, I gave myself certain rules, because one of the things and I'm going to try to keep it as much fact-based as I can, but I'm going to be honest with everybody out there. I just can't keep it 100% fact-based, because some of this is going to be me interpreting the data and explaining to you like the nuances and the conversations I've had with people during different timelines of this hobby, when I know people were doing big rips and stuff. And I'm hoping I could show you that history just repeats itself. And one of the things I hear you say a lot too is nobody ever really enjoys Modern. And I could really prove that wrong. Like, no, every set that has ever been released, the only set people do love is Modern. And you see it from 2004 to 2014. And every set released, people always love Modern. So whenever somebody would say that, my eyes just roll in the back of my head.
Like, I think it's the masses like Modern. Like, I've said that, but it's like this whole Pokemon like investing space. Like, you can go to any of the Discords, or like look at Instagram chats, like your own comment. Like, dude, people always hate on the new set, is like, oh, this is not as good as Sword and Shield. This is no Evolving Skies. This isn't going to perform well. This is going to be dead for years. Like, you kind of hear it every time new sets get released. And so I'm not saying people hate Modern. It's just they always think like it's worse. Like, they always think what comes out is worse than what was there before.
Before I go through the numbers, I got to ask you a question. Where do you rank Team Rocket Returns on your set list of, if you have, is it one of the greatest sets ever? I believe I've heard you mention
like,
on your,
as far as I think I said I would like to open it. Like, if I could open any pack, I said I would open a Team Rocket Returns pack.
Would you can we at least agree that a lot of people would consider Team Rocket Returns one of the best sets ever?
Yeah, probably before like Evolving Skies happened.
Yeah, okay. So I think that,
or Cosmic Eclipse.
And and I'm glad you said that, before Evolving Skies. That's fine. So
and maybe after a Cosmic Eclipse too.
Okay, that's fine, because I'm only going up to 2014. So I think it's going to be really interesting at the end when I show you guys all this. So what I'm going to do is just take my camera, minimize it.
You can ask to share screen.
That's okay. All right. So can you see this? So this, right, like you mentioned, you don't want any like sweetheart deals or anything. So all I did is, this is Hill's Wholesale Gaming. Snapshot of Hill's Wholesale Gaming through different timelines. You could See all the different snapshots of the website from 2004 all the way up to 2003. All this is automatically saved. Thank you, internet. So if we go to the earliest,
hold on, let me ask you something. Do you have anything, like, is this your whole computer screen?
What is,
like, do you have anything on there that you don't want to show?
No.
All right, go back to full size and then just hit present and hit share screen. That way I can just make it bigger for everyone.
All right, let's see. Present.
And it should say share screen, like up top, and then you can hit whole screen. It's like the right tab. So if you hit share screen, and then it should like hit entire screen, and just click on the screen you want to share. And then it should allow me to pull it up then.
Okay, I can pick the window. I got you.
Yeah. All right, much better.
All right. So this is Hills Wholesale Gaming, January 2004. If you look at some of the prices on here, you can see Pokemon base set booster box, $40. So for everybody, this is a 5-year timeline of base set. So everybody that says after 5 years, every single product goes up. No product has gone from this was an $80 booster box, I promise you. No booster box has lost 50% in its value, gone to 40. Like that, this is the thing. This is the nuances that I don't like, because when people say that information, that 100% of booster boxes go up after 5 years, it's just factually like incorrect. So I'm trying to give you guys like a snapshot and a picture in time. And this is just starting at 2004. It doesn't get much better from here up to 2014. I think they hear $800 booster boxes in 2015. I don't believe most people watching this video, I don't know if most of them understand how quick that jump from 100, where it's going to take a long ways to get to $100 booster box.
Well, in your expert opinion,
I'm not an,
whatever. Do you ever see that happening again?
So I think this is where the nuance is if somebody asks me in my, so one of the things
I ask you your opinion. It's just your opinion.
Yeah. So in my opinion, no, it never could. But if anybody asks me, has it ever happened before? Even though I want to tell them no, I can't lie. And if somebody says, do we have any examples of the market crashing, booster boxes going down? While my opinion is yes, we can never see this happen again.
But you could say no modern box ever has.
Yeah, sure. And I told you, Alex, I agree with you 100% on the modern thing. But this is the thing, like, you got to look at this whole hobby and say, is it possible? And the answer to the is it possible is yes. Now, I could sit here, and I'm not gonna, for your chat's sake, I could sit here for 3 hours and tell you why I don't think this could ever happen, why the collector base has changed, the investor base, kids grew out of Pokemon. I could go through all that, but it doesn't change the facts that it is possible. So,
all right.
So this is just 2014. So we're at $40 base set booster boxes. So when we jump to the end of the year, we could jump to December, and base set booster boxes increase from $40, and now we have them right here at the top, to $65. And there's a reason why, and this is one of the things that I love about Pokemon, is history has its awesome way of repeating itself. Do you know why in 2004 base set booster boxes went from 40 to 65?
No idea.
So arbitrage, meaning in 2004.
Well, that's what I was actually going to bring that up. Not that I was going to say that, Hills a lot of times was always a good amount under full market price,
and sometimes above too. They're
so arbitrage makes sense.
Yeah. So, and now this is the thing where I said I'm trying to keep it just with the numbers. I've talked to Gary King Pokemon. I've had good conversations with him. Gary's biggest mass box opening he ever did was 94 booster boxes, and he sourced those booster boxes for $25 a piece. So, and people are going to say, well, how do you know it was arbitrage backhand? And the answer is because of PSA slabs, like the label. they're called flips. Nobody in our hobby really calls them flips, but that's the name. And the way you're able to like actually know that is because PSA's flips have changed over time. You could go back to the real original ones. It was like a 2-year timeline from like 92 to 94. Pokemon wasn't even around then, but you can see the change in the flips. So you could actually like quickly pinpoint a period of time that certain Pokemon cards were graded, assuming they didn't rehold their own. But you could look at certain numbers is a whole conversation because certain numbers, while you think they go in order, they don't. And but you could actually pinpoint certain slabs. Like a great example is some of the PSA slabs are the red label. They have the holographic PSA in the center. Some of
Mhm.
them don't. And when you look at a lot of old Charizards, Rusty TCA Gaming recently just posted his Charizard collection in PSA 1 through 10. And when you look at that PSA 10, you look at the label. It's the oldest label. It doesn't have the holographic PSA. The numbers get tricky, and there's period of times where you can know the numbers, but sometimes they're all over the place.
No, no,
So
I'm fair with that point. That's fine.
yeah.
Yeah. So we can say,
So
okay.
so now we're gonna get out of 2004 and we'll get into 2005. So we'll go jump down to October 30th, 2005. And, maybe some people out there will also enjoy this too, because this is a snapshot in time for a lot of people, something that maybe they don't really know. But this is the problem. When we saw that price increase in December of 2004 to $65 base set booster boxes, you jump a year later, the price is stagnant because that arbitrage play dries up. But this is the thing when I always say I roll my head in the back of my eyes when people say they don't like modern. It's like, well, look at the 3 most recent sets. You got Emerald, Unseen Forces, and then Delta Species pre-order, and you look at the prices for this and
I mean, you okay, so I do want to like push you on that though. Like,
yeah,
you hear that too, right?
hear
I
what?
mean, from Pokemon investors and people who are really in depth in the market or they're flippers or businesses, everyone's always down on the new sets. Not the collectors, not the broad hobby and like the enthusiasts, like not the largest portion of this hobby. It's just like this YouTube space and like the Discords, like the deep people are always just like,
Yeah.
it seems like there's like a negative connotation to the new sets.
I think you need to branch out a little bit because I think you might be a little too deep down if you think like everybody is always down on the newest sets. And I think you kind of answered your own question when you were explaining it. It's like in the YouTube sphere and stuff. And that's I would
But
say that
you're
is
a part of it.
probably
I mean, you have to see the same things. Like you're part of
yeah,
the Discords.
yeah. I mean, it might be true in this, but I'm in a lot of different Discord groups where people are mass opening these modern sets. People are open them. Every single YouTuber that is big, they open modern sets. You really got to get in like the sub 20,000 subscriber videos to find the people even remotely shitting on modern. I wouldn't say that those are the masses. Like I think of the big guys like Cool Trainer Ryan's opening modern stuff. Pokerev is definitely opening
I
modern
mean,
stuff.
dude, come on. You've been around like, longer than I have on YouTube. Like, when I was like kind of started YouTube, the kind of the consensus was, oh, these modern sets, they're not going to be investable like the older ones. They're overprinted. They're not as good. All that stuff. You heard the same stuff.
Yeah. And I think
And Scarlet Violet's hearing the same stuff. It has been like at least last year. This year, people are getting a little more, inclined to it. But like last year for sure, it was like, oh, this is, yellow borders, blah, blah, blah. Alt arts are over. No one wants this. This stuff's not investable anymore. Pokemon's going to die with Scarlet and Violet. Like people have said that. I think Cool Trainer Ryan said that word for word.
Yeah. So unfortunately, when you talk about like right before you started making videos, is the problem is the market at the time. I mean, we had Vivid Voltage booster boxes at 260. You had Darkness Ablaze booster boxes, crazy prices. You had Shine and Fates at 120 pre-orders. You had Battle Styles 160 a booster box, Fusion Strike 160, Chill and Rain 160 before all these reprints. So any person that was talking down on modern in the short term, unfortunately, I think like they were all correct in that sense. Now, given enough time, and I think a lot of things is like Vivid Voltage. A lot of people were saying, I don't like Vivid Voltage at $240, $260. And I know everybody could look at that now and say, well, obviously, But when you put yourself in the moment, the people saying that, we're getting a lot of shit from people like, oh, they're just talking down on modern, blah, blah, blah. And the unfortunate reality is there is a world we could have lived in where Vivid Voltage never got a reprint, the same way Cosmic Eclipse never got a reprint. Cosmic Eclipse and Vivid Voltage are only separated by 1 year. Cosmic Eclipse is November 2019. Vivid Voltage is November 2020. They are literally only separated by 1 year. So Cosmic Eclipse never got a reprint, went parabolic. Vivid Voltage, if it never got a reprint, there's never any price, like that box never drives down. It goes up into what could feel like infinity. And so, yeah, when you would say people were negative right before you started your channel, I would agree with that. But I think you really got to think of the timeline that people were making the videos.
Well, no, it's just the reason I just wanted to like bring it up is because all the memes that get said, like Alex creates boogeymen and all this. It's like everything I spoke on was happening. Like, and if the people that just didn't follow those channels or haven't heard that side of things, it was a very real kind of sentiment around the community at the time that Sword and Shield era was overprinted. It was, it was coming out. The print runs are going to be too high. The populations are going to be too high, and these aren't going to be worth anything because they're not rare enough, right?
Yeah, and anybody who said that, they weren't really looking at the macro of the hobby, because I didn't. A lot of the early Sword and Shield stuff, I kind of had the different opinion because all this stuff was sold out. Like none of it was available at stores. You couldn't walk into your local Target and Walmart. And I think a lot of people were really saying that this stuff, there's not enough of it being printed. I mean, otherwise the scalper wouldn't exist. Now, if people want to talk about like overprinting and then like the future of pop reports and stuff, and I think there's validity on both sides of the argument. The validity on the, hey, if this shit all gets overprinted and there's a million of these out there and pop reports are crazy, then we may never see prices, increase. But then I see the other side of the argument. It's like, well, you could have huge pop reports, but if you have a ton of demand, and it's economics 101, like you don't have to be if demand outweighs supply, prices go up. And then I think the argument or the question people were having or maybe like internal debates is, well, what happens if Pokemon can meet demand? Because we just never really got to see that with Sword and Shield. Evolving Skies is a great example of a set. They could have probably reprinted Evolving Skies 2, maybe 3 more times. And the strength of that set, the popularity and the demand would have just carried that set for a while. But even a great set like Evolving Skies, there's a number Pokemon could have printed enough of that set where it could have crushed prices. And I think maybe those are more the conversations people are having, but I can see where you're getting at. There was definitely people, and I agree with you, Alex, that were overly like bearish on modern, 100%.
All right, what else we got here?
All right, so let's move out of here. Let's go to just stay in the same year. Let's go December. So December. So we're a full year removed now from 2004, and we still got base set boxes at $65. And you look at some of the sets, like stuff starts to drop a little bit, But now this is the thing I really want you to look at. Pokemon base set booster packs. So, and a lot of the things I'm going to say on today's video is stuff I already know, and it's going to reinforce what you say. And I'm hoping this is something we can agree on. Even you could go all the way back to 2005, and booster boxes are king. They always carry a premium over the single pack. If you buy in bulk, you could get base set packs for $1.25 in 2005. But if you want a booster box, so that at $1.25, that's $45 for 36 packs. If you want a booster box, it's $65. This is not new. So that's why booster boxes are king. Now, we could do this again. The nuances of semantics. There are definitely products that exist that are for the.
That's what I'm waiting for. Like, where are you going with all this? What are you building up to?
No. I want to give a picture for everybody because I'm trying to answer your question of why were base set booster boxes $800 in 2015. And I don't think you could give that answer unless you show everyone the timeline of that booster box. Because if I say, well, they went from $65 to $800, and people are going to be like, Well, explain to me how that happened. So
you're saying it's just a series of
yeah, and I want,
arbitrage and different events that happen throughout the 15 years.
yeah, and I think this is why me and you agree in the end, because I think we both have the same overall thought for Pokemon, but it's just me and you get to our decisions on like two different paths. And I think it's important when you show everyone like base set booster box or packs for $1.25. So I'll try to speed this up a little bit. We could look at July. So like this is July 2006. So you see something happens, base set booster boxes sell out on Hills. Like this is a big deal. So while this is happening, you know, prices for this are going up. EX Team Rocket Returns, one of the best sets in Pokemon's history, $65 for a booster box. So I'll start moving. But I think some people would find this interesting. And I'm gonna tomorrow I do a live every Thursday night at 9:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on my channel. I'm gonna go through all this and in way more detail for anybody that actually wants to like really look at the numbers. But it's important to look at it because in 2006, something special happens. You remember how it was $1.25 per pack? Well, now when you look at it, it's $1.75 per pack if you want to buy in bulk. Because in 2006, there was a change in the hobby. More people did get into Pokemon during this timeline. And you could really see it here. All right, let's try to move this through a little bit because I want to try to answer your question of why we're going to skip years now. We'll go to December 2007. So yeah, so you could just look at all these. I mean, it's just awesome too to look at all these, especially when you're looking at all these booster boxes for packs. So it went from $1.75 to now packs are $2.25. These are years separated to go from, $1.25, 50% increase after a year to $1.75. A year after that, 50% or 50-cent price increase to now $2.25. So when we talk about Pokemon, I feel like it's important to give everyone the big picture because we are spoiled. Since I've been back in this hobby, since you've been back in this hobby, I've never seen a downturn in Pokemon. I talk about Pokemon as all Pokemon investors are just spoiled, man.
What do you mean? There's been downturns.
Not big downturns.
I mean, like what 2017 or 18, there was a graded card downturn, and obviously post pandemic, there's a downturn. Like there's been downturn. Even last year was considered bearish by some.
So like even this strong prices, but after 5 years, like you could look at like where is it? EX Team Rocket Returns. So $80 booster box. This is, here we are. This is 5 years after the fact, when you bring MSRP into conversation, which you don't like the MSRP conversation. I don't like the MSRP conversation, but I've heard people on other lives say the exact words, all Pokemon products go above MSRP after 5 years. I played you a clip. I don't want to put people on blast. I played it for you before we went live. People are definitely saying that. Here's an $80 booster box. EX Team Rocket Returns, 36 packs, $80. One of the most popular sets in the history of this hobby after 5 years was only $80. But
do you have any idea what distro cost was back then?
I couldn't tell you what distro was because I'm trying to just show you like.
Yeah, I just wonder how much over distro it was by then.
Yeah, I mean, Hills is about as close to a lot of the distros you're going to get too.
Yeah.
But this is the thing. In order to show these old prices, in order to use a Wayback Machine, there's only one website that the website today looks the same as it did in 2004, 5, 6. And, trigger warning for a lot of people out there when it comes to wholesale gaming. There's no free shipping. This is your AOL like webpage.
True.
So where are we right now? We're December 21st. So we'll go up an entire year. We're going to skip all the way to December. Hold on. So now we're already into 2010. So I told you we're moving this along. So we started in 2004. Here we are in 2010. But now we're at 36 pack lots for, we'll just keep looking at EX Team Rocket returns. I think this is important. 36 packs, $84. So EX Team Rocket returns in an entire year's time from 2009, from December 2009 to December 2010, only went up $4 per booster box. But
wait. Is
yeah.
that's 36 packs, right?
Yeah. So EX,
and we already established the packs were cheaper than a booster box.
Oh, true. Yeah.
So that probably the box was probably what, at least like 90, 100 by then?
Yeah, maybe. So you're probably right. Yeah, that's a good catch. That's something I missed. But I think it's still good to have the perspective, you know, of like what these.
I agree. So where did well, we can't tell. So where do you think base made its big leaps?
So
I mean, I guess we can't tell.
I mean, we're here in 2012, right? So so in 2012, let's see, try to find EX Team Rocket returns again. There's a lot. I mean, when you look at these prices, everybody's going to look at this and say what if I could just go back in time with $10,000, I could bring back $1 million by the time, you know, assuming you did the right buys with all this stuff, you know.
And nobody did except people like Cold Trainer Ryan and, you know, those guys.
But this is the thing that I want people to take into account too. Like, look at how much stuff was available. All this black and white, Emergent Powers, you know, booster boxes, $90. Emergent Powers booster box case, $540. You could go back to the Heart Gold Soul Silver time. You had all your platinums available, you know, like you had Supreme Victors. You had all this stuff was available. Like, this stuff was readily available. Dragons Exalted, great set, arguably underprinted, $90 booster boxes. But this is the thing too, is as popularity starts to like increase, this $90 booster box, when we used to see 65, 70, 72 for Delta Species, now you fast forward only 6 years, $90. This is why me and you, Alex, were able to wind up in the same spot at the end of the day, because I look at the entire history of this, like this stuff, and I get more excited as the time goes on, and I'm like, okay, everything is going up. And this is about the timeline that I got back into the hobby. And I always put it into perspective for people. I was not buying any of this stuff.
No, of course not.
Wish I could tell everybody. I put in the perspective for everybody. I was buying base set Raichus. I was buying the dumbest thing when I could have been buying $90 boxes of Dragons Exalted.
And that's like another one of the arguments, like for Pokemon investing now. It's like back then, and even when I got in, nothing was proven, right? Like it was such a new like idea, a new concept that things could rise in value, especially quickly. And I think now, like with the amount that's proven and how like we've seen like a track record of every like 3, 4, 5 years, these modern boxes moving up, it almost makes people more comfortable putting their money in it than they were back in 2015 or 2012. You know what I mean?
Yep. So now,
like, yeah, you just wouldn't have bought. I mean, I was there. I didn't buy.
I tell people all the time, I wish I could just lie and say I bought all this shit, and I just didn't. I didn't even know. Like, I was so surface level from when I first got back into the hobby, which that's one of the reasons I'm super bullish on this hobby is what my first 4 years in this hobby. So let's just say 2012 to 2016 is the same timeline of people that got in during COVID to today. People's knowledge of this hobby blows any knowledge I had in those 4 years timelines. Everything people are doing, which makes me even that more bullish on like this hobby, because I'm like, I think I'm engaged, but I see this person just got in 4 years ago and they're doing big things. And I look at old little Timmy me in 4 years in 2016 and I'm like, no, none of what these people are doing. So now here we are. We finally made it to, so here we are, April 2014. So this is something I think it's important too. Look at all this stuff available. Now, 2014, I'm going to just real quick give everybody an understanding. In 2014, right when Alex got back in the hobby, you could get every single black and white set, every single black and white product. You could get every single Diamond and Pearl product, even Diamond and Pearl Legends Awakens booster boxes. 144. Congratulations. They made it to MSRP. We've won. We've won the, it took an entire timeline to get some of these booster boxes to MSRP. All Diamond and Pearl. You can still get Crystal Guardians 36-pack lots for $180. I love to put this into perspective for people, and we're getting close to how do we get to $800 booster box. I'm working on it, Alex. But,
All right.
So
Good.
then
Let's see it. Let's see it. Let's see it.
All right. So now we'll scroll down and we'll try to find. So Fossil booster packs, $12. Deoxys, $10. Let's see. Team Rocket Returns. Where's Team Rocket Returns? EX Team Rocket Returns booster pack, $12 in 2014. So when you say why were base set booster boxes $800 in 2015, I asked the question, why were packs of Team Rocket Returns $12? Because people just weren't thinking in this sort of way. And that's why I'm going to be honest with you, Alex, and last time me and you talked, it was something that kind of bothered me a little bit, is when you talk about when you got back into the hobby and you were picking up base set booster boxes in Jungle and Fossil, I don't think you give yourself credit. I think you kind of pass it off too much as what you were doing puts you in the smallest percentile of people in the hobby, because I'm going to finally get to
speaking about my favorite, website, E4, I mean, you know how it was because you were probably on there back then. Like when you logged on there, you still felt like just a little shrimp compared to what some of the guys on there were doing. Right?
Alex, wait, if you ever go to Rusty's house, you will.
That's what I'm saying. Like I'm just very aware of like my spot in the hobby. Like, yeah, maybe it's like better compared to like the general public, but like I understand the people in this hobby making big plays. They were making big plays, right?
Yeah, but not like you were doing, man, because you got to keep in mind, you were buying booster boxes after they had seen some of the craziest run-ups ever. A good example is Rusty, when he got back into the hobby in 2009, like he bought a booster box of base set for $100. 5 years later, you got back in and you paid an 8X. It now took a booster box to go from 1999 all the way up to 2009. It took it to go up from $40 to $100. And then in a 5-year timeline, it went from $100 to $800. And when you bought in, that was crazy. That was
why crazy. I didn't buy in then even.
But you jumped on.
I didn't buy till it was like $2,000.
Oh, well, even then you were even after. So like when you jumped on, the prices that you got in a lot of this stuff at was preposterous gains. Sure, Captain Hindsight could come in, and all this is 2020 after the fact. But like, so I'm trying to find one. So this.
I guess it's all about how you interpret it. Like, did you interpret, being in from 2012 until 2016? Did you interpret it as things have already risen too much? It's too scary, or
I wasn't doing the dollar plays I was doing. If I said the first year I was in, I spent $400 or $500, maybe,
right.
Like maybe. I don't even know. I was buying I was buying VHSs. I was buying movie posters. I was buying currencies and just stuff from my childhood. I don't even know. This stuff wasn't even on my radar. Like,
right. No, same.
It took me a long time to get down the rabbit hole, but either way, I can't. Trying to find the base set booster packs if anybody sees it. But either way, it was like $28 by 2014. So what happened was a lot of this base set product was perceived supply. And what I mean by perceived supply is a lot of people during this timeline, there was groups of people that got in the 2009 period, like SM Pratt. TCA Gaming, Old School Pokemon, they all got in 2009. Then, and I don't know why it worked out this way. Then in 2012, there was a group of people all got in at the same time, and you could actually see it. Like 2012 timeline is a great example. Everybody in this hobby always loves to refer to two certs for PSA. When I told you that you have to look at the flips to get timeline, the two cert era is one of the few times that we can actually correlate the timeline with the number of on the slab versus the timeline. So two certs were end of 2011, 2012. There was a huge explosion that happened in 2012, and it all led up from that 2009. And because people were able to start making some money in Pokemon from 2009, and you see it happen here. Rusty started to make a little business. Scott Pratt started to make a little business. Old School Pokemon. None of these guys are really doing it full time, but the hobby was shifting and people were funneling in for each one of these timelines till 2012. You can really pinpoint it with that PSA pop report and see the explosion in two certs because prices changed. And then from 2012, a lot of people got into what they bought as a kid. It was base set. So because you had a flood of people enter in that 2012 timeline, you now give this product 3 years to really explode in price. But the reason it exploded in price too was, again, what I mentioned, perceived supply. And what I mean by perceived supply is I saw, and I mean this, in 2020, I saw people writing comments, there could only be like 100 base set booster boxes left, right? And anybody that knows just laughs that out the room, right? And probably since 2020 to now, we've seen 500 base set booster boxes open and however many hundreds to thousands more are still in people's collection. But it was always the perceived supply. And in 2012, there's a weird thing that happened. There was a weird perceived supply that base set booster boxes were really scarce. It took a while for people. There was a lot of people, this price increases happened. They had no clue. Didn't even know it happened. So that's my best way to answer your question of is how did booster boxes sell for $800 in 2015 when you got back in the hobby? This is the only way I could explain it.
All right.
Slow, gradual price increase until 2009 timeline. People flooded in, and I say flooded. I'm in relative. It's a lot. 2012, huge flood of people until eventually that I call it like the initial investors, right? Because whatever Pokemon investing, if you want to put investing in its infancy, those were the timelines that people started to do this stuff. So that's how I answer it. If you don't like that answer like that, I wanted to answer your question. You asked it on your.
No, you're good. Do you want me to take this down?
Yeah, you could take it down.
No, I mean, it was definitely well thought out. Like I'd never even put that much thought into how it got there, to be honest with you.
Well, you asked the question, so I don't. Yeah. I mean, you put it out there. I don't know why you would always put it out there. Maybe like as I got you. I don't know.
No. I put it out there as a way to show, like, these products, like you said, even though some went stagnant for like 5 years plus, they were rising during times of like quote unquote dead times or much less times. And it's like, if products could rise during those times, what makes people think that like a Sword and Shield or a Scarlet Violet era product can't rise is my like way of, I guess, like tying it in.
Yeah. And if you watch any of my videos, you would know that's why I'm super bullish on this.
No, dude, that's what I'm saying. Like, like we said beforehand, like I'm not ever like trying. No, okay, well, let's just like air it out, right? Of course, I've talked shit in the past. Of course, we both made videos like directly at each other. It's happened multiple times, but no, like especially since, like I told you, since Collecticon, shook hands. We said we'd squash things. I haven't nothing I say is directed at you anymore. And so, like, if it feels that way, or if like something I say comes off as like I'm not, I don't have you in mind when I'm making videos. Like, so,
yeah. Well, and before we went live, I mentioned like one of the reasons I reached out to you was I had Nat Turner, the president and CEO of Collectors. It was a great conversation. Came on my channel, talked about the eBay Vault, and somebody came into the live chat while like we were asking eBay Vault questions and stuff, and somebody was in the chat trolling, saying like, "Oh, look at PK's live viewers and compare the Alexes." So I saw the comment live, and I was like, "All right, this is just one person trolling. Like, I'm not going to think anything of it." And no matter how much me and you disagree, like on a personal level, whatever that disagreement is, I love Pokemon 20 times more. So I still watch all your videos. I watch a lot of people's videos. So after my live was over, like the next day or the day after, on my queue, I went and watched your live, and I'm listening and just got my headphones in, not thinking much of it. You're just doing your normal ramble the same way I ramble about the Pokemon market. And then you stop in the middle of your live and you go, all right, I just want to check something real quick. And you click on my channel and you're like, oh, PK only has this many live viewers. And I was watching, I'm like, man, me and Alex are having a competition and I'm not even playing the game right now. I'm like, I'm like, this has to stop. Like, you're stopping in the middle of your live to look over at, and I thought it was just one troll in the chat, but I'm like, maybe he came over during that timeline. I was just like, this has to end. Like, you can't be going live, pausing it to check my live viewer count. Like, we gotta move on. It can't be a competition if only one of us are playing,
No,
So,
man, I don't act innocent in this at all. Like, again, like pointing back to a specific, time in history where it all started, like it's hard, came on your channel, it went whatever, and then, we had disagreements on topics where we both kind of made videos on facts back and forth. There was things said on live streams, like on other people's channels. And then, I definitely poked you, with some like the gatekeeper stuff. And then, you poked back. And like I said, it's all, to me, man, it just feels like ancient history. I'm not trying to keep it going either.
Yeah, like I said, the problem is the nuance. We argue about the nuances. Is you only want to look at 2015 to present. I want to look at the whole history, and I hope when I come on, like you can. I would love for you to go on the Wayback Machine and make a video the same way as I'm going to make a video tomorrow and go through, and because a lot of this reinforces everything you're saying, because I don't disagree with that stuff, because I know this information. But how many people out there know this information or really know it? If they weren't even around during 2014 and you could buy everything, you could buy Team Rocket Returns pack for $12, every single black and white set, every diamond and pearl set, most EX sets, and most vintage sets.
Well, here, let's take the conversation right there. That's a great debate we could have, right? I think one of the reasons we got into it a little bit is, I guess I disagree with using those pre numbers, because it really gives like a false sense of what is possible now. Like how we'd always talk about like the whole vintage thing and how much you've made and how much like people make now. It's like, yeah, saying, if you bought in 2012, 14, 16, whatever that, you take your numbers from then until now, you can, even after the big boom and bust, you can show you made tons and tons of money. But then that gives a viewpoint to like everyone getting in the hobby now, like, oh, wow, it's made that much in the past 8 years. This next 8 years, I'm going to crush it. It's like, there's way too many aspects that went into how that money got there. It's like, there's a very high probability those cards that did so well during the pandemic are not going to do well in the next 8 years the way that like modern will. And so like, I think that's the thing we always disagreed on the most of, like the reason I take certain parts of data is to give realistic ideas on what's possible like now, and not like if I would have got in back then type thing.
Yeah, see this, I understand what you're saying, but I think you forget the point of what were we doing that during that timeline. Like, most people were selling. You don't sell if you think this stuff's going to keep going up. So when you talk about a lot of the people like during the whole vintage versus modern, and it's like all these guys want their vintage cards to go up, and it's like, I think most of the people that really were owning those cards thought the prices were ridiculous, because if they didn't think the prices were ridiculous, they wouldn't have sold into that crazy hype. And most people, most is always a subjective term, but a lot of people, myself, Dan, Rusty's a great example. One of the biggest collections ever. And during the peak of 2020, Rusty's inventory on his eBay store went down to 200. This is a man that at one point had 10,000 plus listings on his eBay, and it went down to 200 because he just ran out of supply. He ran out of stock. Like, it was, so I would push back a little bit on, I think a lot of the people that you're kind of saying thought all this stuff was worth a lot of money really sold into this hype.
Hold on, let me take this real quick. This guy had a big super chat.
Yep.
Pokey Gaga. I think a lot of the market move was because it was out of sight, out of mind for most people. In 2012, as people began to see the product as an adult, naturally demand grew. Yeah, man, I mean, in my opinion, I think that's part of it. I think it's just like the perfect storm. You know, you had all these YouTube channels pop up with all the packs getting opened. You had people find these online communities where, you know, one of the reasons I think, in my opinion, why like sports cards really died in the 90s and like, you know, a lot of these other hobbies died as we grew up is, you know, once your like little friend group or community, your card shop shut down, or like you didn't really have anywhere to collect it or talk about it, your you know, interest went away. But nowadays it's like you can keep that interest alive like 24/7 online, on Discord, on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, and it just keeps you constantly engaged. So like I think that was a big deal too, is just having YouTube and seeing other people your age do it, and it just I think that helped too.
Yeah. I think it was a sum of all parts type of thing. I know we want to try to like point to one thing, but it was a sum of all things. It was a lot of things all happened at once. And not only did they all happen at once, like I showed you and what me and Alex were talking about, there was a huge buildup. Like the gas, we primed the fire. All it needed was a match. Somebody had already poured gasoline on this market, and you can see it. You can see the demand. You can see the PSA pop reports. You can see graded prices. You can see vintage prices. You can see vintage sealed, vintage singles. And then somebody finally threw a match on it. So it was a sum of a lot of things. Yeah.
I mean, what else other topics did you have in mind?
That's it, man. I don't know if you want to, we could keep chatting. We could answer some questions from the chat.
Oh yeah. I'm up for anything, man. Like I said,
if you want to challenge me on anything, feel free, man. Like this is,
I really don't like, I mean, live. You know, here's the thing. Like I talked about it, and this is not me, you know, I told you beforehand, I'll say it live. I don't care. Like, this is not me being a victim. It's not me being upset at anyone. It's just, you know, whenever you have like a friend group, right? And you're close knit friends, which I think you and some other people in the hobby are, and someone, you know, like me or anyone, but me in this case, you know, makes videos or challenges or gets into it with certain people in that friend group. Obviously the knee-jerk reaction is to say, okay, you know, push that guy out, stay together, like support each other, you know. And I think that's kind of just what happened. And, you know, and I'm not going to name everyone, but all these different, you know, creators or business people who own businesses in YouTube, it's like you guys had all a close-knit group, and I kind of got ostracized from that. And so I just fired back, and I started making content firing back, trying to, I guess make a name for myself, show that, you know, there was other, you know, options out there, other opinions. It wasn't like a, you know, a one belief, you know, fits all type, you know, hobby and stuff. And I think it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way in the hobby. And it's the, like you said, we both still struggle from it from today, because it divided the hobby. And, you know, and I think it's best if we can kind of come back, get everything kind of back together and on the same page, and everyone can have disagreements, but it doesn't have to be this like him versus him, or, you know, taking sides type thing.
Yeah. I mean, I struggle with some of it because a lot of the people that I feel are my friends have been on my channel. A lot of them have been on your channel before too, man. Like I saw Pokemon Classics in there. Dan Catch 'em All Collectibles has been on. You've been on Jake's stream. You're probably like the #1 most reoccurring guest.
Well, we talked about that too, though. Like
Card Shop, you've had Retrospecs, you had Basic Trainer on. You've had.
Well, we talked about that. Like I've had them on. I talked to those people in person and stuff. But it's like, you know, they're still the ones. They're not everyone you mentioned, but like a lot of those guys are the ones that still fire shots at me if I'm like if I show up in another person's live stream, or if I, you know, join a Discord, like I'm getting shots from those people. Like the only reason any of those guys are in the chat tonight probably is because you're here. Like, you know, they'll be in, you know, come to your lives, or let's say Retro's lives, or Pokemon Wonders, or, you know, Professor Oak Green Shiz, or like I can name names, Dan Catch 'em All Collectibles. Like, you know, the only reason they're here tonight is because of you. Like normally they wouldn't. A lot of those guys wouldn't be in this live stream.
I don't think that's. I don't know. I don't see it.
Again, I'm not. It's cool. I'm just saying, it's like that divide happened, and, you know, after that happened, I definitely saw that like falling away, and it's cool. I didn't like fight it. I just kind of went in a different direction.
In our group. when we went out to that steak restaurant in Charlotte, like a lot of like you were there. You were sitting not across from me, but like across from me, right at the other table. We had like our own private room. Like you were there. You were with all the people I consider friends, and all those people there, I think you consider friends too, man. So
Yeah.
I think we're in the same friend group. I I don't I've these people I've talked to, like all their complaints with you are just, the things I've already mentioned. I don't want to like hash them out too much, but it's like, the you did make call out videos and I made call out videos. I am not I'm not innocent in this argument, but it was just I don't know. I don't get the pushback from a lot of people. I feel like you have a lot of the same friends I do. And if you asked any of those guys to come on a stream, I think any of them would say yes.
It's possible. Do you guys know, again, Pokey Gaga, thanks again for the super chat, man. Do either of you know someone who had the foresight Pokemon as an investment, someone through the match, but who was pouring the gasoline? Only one I can think of is Gary King Pokemon. Is he the cabal?
No. I could definitely take this unless you could think of some people.
No, go ahead.
So one of my favorite lives I ever had was a guy, his name was MK Poke CC. He was in 2009, and like I talked about, 2009, there was a lot of people enter the hobby. 2009, he was a junior in high school washing dishes for a summer job. He saved up enough money to buy a number 3 SSB Mewtwo, so Super Secret Battle Mewtwo. He was the first person to ever grade that card in a PSA 10 in 2009. He was a junior in high school. And that is a card that's worth well above $100,000 today. And he was able to build a collection in high school until he had all like the tropical Mega Battle phone cards. He had all of them in a 10. And he was eventually able to trade for an Illustrator Pikachu. His was the authentic version, but I always loved his story because he said it's in the name of the game, Pokemon trading card game. And he was literally able to trade up for that. And, during 2015 and during that timeline, he bought like one of the Poliwhirl snap cards and big snap cards, how many snap cards existed until eventually the Poliwhirl was the first winner to sell a bunch of his. And he put a photo of 15 out there and everyone thought only 15 snap cards exist. And then ended up landing on the number of 20, but he bought a snap card. He bought these high-end trophy cards. And yeah, I definitely know people at the time were wheels. Like the reason he was able to buy $1,800 number 3 trainer is because the same person selling had the number 3, the number 2, and the number 1 all for sale, but he could only afford the 1,800 for a number 3. So yeah, he ended up becoming a huge whale. And it started with him washing dishes in a restaurant as a junior in high school as a summer job. There are people out there who have stories in this hobby that make my base set Raichu story really look like shit. So,
Yeah, I mean, and like it's always talked about, it's like a lot of the people, no one knows their name, like the people who had the craziest gains or own the craziest collections, like they remain nameless type thing.
yeah. Well, it's like the Team Rocket Returns packs. Well, if they were $12 in 2014, well, who bought them all? Well, there's people out there who bought them. And why is the Team Rocket Returns pack now worth $1,000? Because some people are really good at playing this market.
Because Cool Trainer Ryan probably bought them out. All right, I'll take your question because you gave a super chat, but do you love each other? What do you think about Twice Baked Jake? Is he a big nerd or is he cool? What about Opossum Bud? Would you win or lose a fist or first in a battle royale between all the PokeTubers?
I'm not
we're not going to get
anything about other content creators on this stream, but I do.
Yeah.
We appreciate the super chat, or at least Alex does.
No, I mean, I've never talked to Twice Baked Jake. Seems like a nice guy. Was on a stream with Opossum Bud. We've had our instances, but he was respectful on that stream. So that's all I can really say about it.
Yeah, I did enjoy that stream. The unfortunate reality of that stream was I think OKJ Lovin, he was outclassed in that. He didn't have what it takes to debate Pokemon investing. It's tough if you're gonna have that debate. Like you gotta have some talking points. And I feel like he could have went about it a little bit differently. And there was just too many questions he couldn't answer.
I'm just reading some of these. If you see any you want to take, we can. Let's see.
Oh, I'm sure. I can only imagine. I have this innate ability to not look at the chat sometimes. Sometimes I do, but sometimes I don't. This was one of those lies. I turned the chat off and I put it on private chat because I don't want to see the chat.
Well, here, Cameron's always wanting me to chat with him, so we'll take one of Godly Shad's questions. What type of effect do you see on the prices of Sword and Shield once the spotlight moves away? If we start to see Scarlet Violet sets that compete against Sword and Shield, could we start to see the demand finally leave from Sword and Shield? In my opinion, I mean, yeah. So, not to like give it away, but I have a video already made that's filmed that's going to come out. But I actually went back because there's like been talk lately about these specialty sets, and do you buy the ETBs or do you just buy the singles? Because the singles seem to be performing better, especially when you look at like the alt arts now with like the Mewtwo V and like the Crown Zenith stuff. And it's like when you go look back, once like the spotlight moves away, like all the best Charizard cards, they all kind of flatline and go down. Like Hidden Fates Charizard, the Champion's Path Charizards, even like the Burning Shadows Charizard. It's not a specialty set, but it's like there's only like a select few cards of each era that we see really stand the test of time, really continue to rise. Like the tag teams are starting to come back. Like the Mewtwo GX from Shining Legends perform well. There's some cards in XY like a Silver Dialga or like the Gengar Full Art and some other secret rares that have performed well. But by and large, a lot of singles do, once that popularity goes away, they do a lot of them flatline. Will the alt arts be different? Possibly, but that's why I like when it gets to like the long term. I like sealed because we have seen the sealed kind of stand the test of time, but the singles, yeah, I mean, once the popularity shifts 2-3 years down the road, I think we could see things kind of flatline a little bit. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean it's that's a tough question, but right now I think a lot of the focus is on Sword and Shield because I just think people feel like that's a fleeting opportunity. So people are just kind of dumping their money in there. But I think once prices for Sword and Shield really start to go up, then a lot of people are going to still have that available cash to buy stuff, and it's going to get buried into Scarlet and Violet real quick. What you brought up with the alt art questions, a good one. I think the danger is, and I know you think pop reports. I don't know what you think. Do you think pop reports matter? Do you not? I think one of the things that you need in order for long-term price appreciation for cards is you need these cards to be sucked up by the collector. And the question is right now, a lot of these alt arts, is the supply being absorbed by collectors, or is right now the supply being absorbed by resellers? And resellers could be people sitting on multiple copies. Nobody really needs multiple copies of cards, but is that where a lot of this demand is? It's resellers, or is this true, actual, organic collectability demand? And then the question is, if the collectability demand can be met, well, what happens now to that oversupply? Because then if you only have sellers and no buyers, that could be the slippery slope. That's the only dangerous thing I could think of.
Well, I mean, so what I always go to like looking at the velocity of the sales, right? Like you could argue there was resellers, there were investors, buying them up when they were down. But it's like now that the Umbreon in those cards, like Garatina's $800-900, Umbreon's $1,500, and you still see less than 100 supply of those on the market in PSA 10. I think still like less than 50 near mint copies or less than 20 near mint copies on TCG Player. And the prices are this high. Like, at what point do you say, okay, investors and flippers are no longer buying these and they're not hitting the market? Like, I think that's a strong sign.
Yeah. Right now, I think you just got both. I think the waters are just a little muddied right now. Like, and the only reason I can say this is because I know for a fact. Like, you can talk to Dan. Dan's buying Moonbreons. He was doing the eBay vault play. You can talk to I mean, how many videos recently did Z and G Emporium make where he's like, I bought this Moonbreon today, I'm going to sell it tomorrow. And he was just doing it, So there's still people still doing that play, and prices are still creeping up right now. So,
but what I'm saying is all the people buying at $1,500, like those have to be collectors, right? I mean, are people really like investing or trying to make a play at 1,500?
What do you think it is about the What do you think it is about the collector that, Moonbreon, when Evolving Skies was initially released, the Rayquaza was worth more than the Moonbreon. The Moonbreon was still a $250 raw card. when Evolving Skies came out, and then it was a $600 card and a 700 to 1,000 to a 1,500, and then it had a huge pullback down to between that $700 and $800 range, and then we've just seen that baby freight train all the way up to 1,600. At all these points, all these pullbacks, why did nobody, if they're collectors, why now 1,600? And I just,
well, I mean, I think people are always like they always want to wait to the last minute. Like right now, like no one, even collectors, they don't want to collect Scarlet and Violet, right? They don't want to buy the SIRs, like for whatever reason. Like there's gonna be more come out, more get graded. Maybe there's a reprint. Like no one ever wants to buy them until like the last minute. I feel like, and until they feel like they're not going to have another chance at some point in the future or something.
Yeah, but it's weird because when it hit 1,000, I probably could have had the same conversation with you as Alex. Why are people buying this now? And I feel like you would have gave me the same answer. So if I came back on this channel a year from now and it's a $3,000 card and I ask you, why didn't they pick it up at 1,600? Do you just say the same? It's weird.
No, but yeah, no, I really don't have a good answer. That's just the way I rationalize it. But you did like ask about like my whole like thoughts on the whole pop report thing and how I like, obviously I throw things like that out in the videos. So here's my real thoughts, right? I think the like hardcore investors, and it's like, these are all smart people, right? Everyone that like does their due diligence and does this hard research. I just think they look at this hobby the wrong way. I think people are trying to look at this hobby as like a comic book or like a sports car, like these very old collectibles, as in the majority of the buyers are all doing the same thing. The majority of the buyers are doing the same thing and worried about the same things and looking for the same things as they feel like they should, like a rational person would, right? But what they forget is the majority of the money being spent in this hobby are not by people that are looking at all these things. The majority of the money getting spent in this hobby is by people buying the cards they inherently just want. And I think that's why you're seeing cards that have 5,000-10,000 pop report being driven up, and cards that, maybe more rare that have like 300 that have historical significance that are this old and you can't open a box for less than 50 grand aren't, is because I just think the largest number in the hobby that actually move the markets just don't care. And even though a lot of people think they should, and maybe in the future someday they will, it's just, this is a young hobby. It's a young person's hobby, and young people, I don't think they care as much.
Yeah. So the first half, I agree with like a lot of the investors. They look at some cards and like people should like them because they're rare. But then you said people forget where people are buying. I promise you, all the sellers out there, no one here forgot what people are buying. Everyone here who's a big seller, they know. Nobody forgot. And if you ask anybody, any of the big sellers, what do you sell more of than anything else? It's always modern. It's very, very, very hard to find somebody that says a different answer. I don't think anybody.
Yeah, but I hate, but see, like, and even I know Dan's in the chat. I have this conversation right to his face, so I'm not talking, but behind his back, he's here too. But it's like I have the same like issue with Dan, and I told him this. It's like, if you truly believe that the best thing to do for running a business is flipping capital as many times as you can per year, right? And you also truly believe that modern you can make higher returns on, like, throughout the year. You truly believe it's more liquid. Why would you not dump all of the vintage and throw all that capital into even if you have to take, 20, 30% under market and you're selling it less than you would if you let it sit, buy it now? Because if you have hundreds of thousands of dollars in inventory locked up, and you could have been flipping it, you could have easily made up for that 20, 30% under market that you took over the course of a year, 2 years, because you're able to flip it in the inventory is wanted and is going to sell. So like you say everyone knows this, but it's like, why aren't people taking advantage of it then?
Yeah, I think there's something you forget too, is while Dan is definitely investor
he's
boy,
just one person.
Dan, he's still collector boy Dan too.
Yeah, he's just one person, but like there's tons of resellers that they say that same thing, and it's just like, well, if you know this, then why do I look at your eBay page, your TCG Player page, and I see 6 figures of inventory sitting there, some of it which has been sitting there 3, 6, 9 months? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
I mean that's just my pushback on that. I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, modern is still volatile too, so it's easy to look at the Moonbrown. It's easy to look at the winners, but like, let's just say we're going to go with what you said. It's like, okay, let's just go after modern. Let's just go after it and ignore all the vintage, and we don't spread ourselves out and diversify in Pokemon. What happens in 2020? They go hard at Vivid Voltage at $260 a box. They buy the Chunkachu at $1,500 PSA 10 Vivid Voltage Pikachu. People love Modern. Modern only goes up. VMAX Charizard in a PSA 10, $450 or whatever that card was selling at. You know, let's say they
I guess that goes back to what we just said though. Like, are the sellers and the investors really buying at those prices?
Yeah, I mean,
like, are they buying Moonbreons right now? Are they buying? Maybe I'm not.
I don't know, but I that's the danger of going all in. Like, you could have went all in and you could have been like, I'm only buying PSA 10 Vivid Voltage Pikachus, most modern set, fan favorite Pokemon, Altart, Rainbow Rare, PSA 10. This thing is going to the moon. And now you would have lost $1,000 for every PSA 10 Chunkachu you bought. So
True.
For every winner, if you don't want to back the wrong horse, so it's better to spread yourself out. Or if you just dump money in, I mean, Top 10 Pokemon made a great video showing all the Charizards. The VMAX Charizard in a PSA 10 lost 95% of its value. Can you imagine? Imagine Dan, a whale, dumps in 95% of Dan's money is millions of dollars. You know, that just imagine you go all in on Modern because you're that strong and you believe in it, and you just time the market wrong because it's all speculation, right?
Yeah, 100%. No, I agree. Like, again, I don't have exact answers for these. I'm just trying to like piece together like things that I've heard and things like what I see people do. Like, I watch the actions of people. I'm just like trying to put it together in my head and wonder why like people can like, I guess, agree or say one thing, but then like kind of do another at the same time. It just doesn't, I don't know.
Champions Path Charizards, man. You don't want to be that guy. It's so you can't go all in on one because what if the Moonbreon isn't the Moonbreon? What if it is the Champions Path Charizard? What if it's a Darkness Ablaze Charizard? What if it's a Vivid Voltage Pikachu? What happens if it's the Charizard from Shining Fates? What do you do in that situation? Because you've now gone all in, and you could break down the fundamentals of these sets, and you could probably make them work for you. Whether, even like a crappy set like Champions Path, you can still like steel man the argument and go, two great Charizards. One of the Charizards is a crazy Japanese alt-art prize card, super expensive in Japan. The Japanese people are going to want it because it's the same artwork, but in English, it's going to be cheaper. You have Charizard on the ETB. You have a Charizard V promo that comes with it. You could steel man Champions Path if you wanted to. The market's going to disassemble that argument, and then you get caught holding the bag. So I don't think you could go all in on anything. You gotta spread yourself out, and if that means stagnant inventory, it's just part of the game. It's just like the S&P 500, and we're gonna do the stock thing. I don't like it, but it's like the S&P 500. Why don't you only buy Apple? Don't buy these diversified S&P funds. Just buy Apple. Why don't you just buy Amazon?
Why? Yeah. So that's one thing I'd love your take on, right? Because you're kind of part of that side of the community. Why is that so frowned upon in this space?
Well, I don't think it's.
Come on, dude. There's people that hate it.
No. I think it's a tough conversation to have because it's like you won't. I think the problem is because you won't compare Pokemon to other collectibles. Like, you don't like that argument. So to compare Pokemon to, say, sneakers or currencies or coins or Pogs or Beanie Babies or Cabbage Patch Kids dolls or any other million G.I. Joes or Barbie dolls or whatever, any other collectible. I think it's a lot easier comparison to compare like Pokemon, a physical kids playing game, to, say, basketball cards than it is for me to compare Pokemon to Apple or Tesla, which is a manufacturer of automotive parts and batteries, and Apple, a manufacturer of technological devices, iPhones and stuff. For me, That is a huge leap opposed to just saying, let's just compare it to basketball cards.
Well, I mean, let me simplify it for you, right? Every month, people have a whatever disposable income, discretionary spending they have. They want to invest their money. They have $1,000 a month to invest. Like, everyone's got the same question: where can I put this money to make the best amount of gains while also in a place where I feel safe enough that it's not too volatile. I'm not going to lose a bunch. And so when you ask that question, it can be anywhere. Sure, it can be coins or sneakers or, art. It can be anywhere you want. The market, it could be saving up for real estate, literally anything you want. When I look at everything, I'm like, okay, well, real estate's even not even as passive as Pokemon. I know you got to sell Pokemon at the end, but real estate, there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into that. Stocks are more passive, but single stocks I feel are more risky. Funds are less risky, but there's a lot less percentage gains than putting it in Pokemon. I personally don't know enough about other collectibles. So if I'm looking at the whole market of where I could throw my dollars, I'm saying, okay, sealed modern boxes, they seem the safest place right now with the biggest opportunity for gains and not losing my money. That's what it feels like to me.
Because you're in it. You're in it.
I mean, do you disagree with that? Do you think that like Pokemon sealed boxes?
Are you asking me where should I put my money, or where should I tell somebody else to put?
No, I'm asking you. So if you had like $1,000, and if you were like an invest based on like something you felt was going to do well,
I'm already going in Pokemon. But if somebody else asked me who hasn't spent thousands of hours learning the nuances of this hobby, knowing when to buy, when to sell, ebbs and flows of the market, knowing the history of products and prices and everything. If they ask me, I got $1,000 PK, what should I do with it? I'm probably going to just say, why don't you invest in the stock market? Because you're probably going to be better off there.
In a fund though, right?
In a fund, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because honestly, I kid you not, I'm not trying to trying to joke right.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm not trying to joke right now. If someone literally said to me, like, Alex, what I know nothing about Pokemon, what would you rather do? Should I buy a box at $80 or $90, or should I buy this single stock? I would always say the Pokemon box is safer than a single stock. I just feel it is.
Yeah, but if they also ask you the question, is there a chance that it could lose 50% in its value? You also can't say to them, well, that's never happened ever. 100% of all boxes have never gone below 50% of $80. But then you instantly already give them false information too.
No, I would say you have less chance than losing it in a single stock.
That's so broad. How many companies are traded on the New York Stock Exchange? A single stock.
I mean, I can pick any big company you want, and over the last 10 years, I can show almost all of them that have lost more than 50% of their value at some point when Pokemon Modern has not. So, technically, it is safer. It has been for the last 10 years.
I know where I'm putting my money, and that's a lot of it. So, this is the thing, Alex. It's the nuances where I'm putting my money versus the conversation that I'm having, and hopefully we're having the same one, is where would I tell somebody to put their money? That is the big leap for me. I'll give them the data the same way as I like to. That's what I do on my channel. The same thing I do it on this is I want to give people the data and let them make their own, excuse my language, make their own fucking choice, because I'm not going to be the one to lead them to that, but I'll give them all the data. And if they're able to interpret the data and they're able to pull out of the data the same thing you've pulled out, the same thing that I've pulled out, the same thing most of the people in this chat have pulled out, that Pokemon is an investment. If they could go into it, they could do all that work, and then they could use actual rational thoughts and look at the market analytically and just make their own decision. I believe they will come to the same conclusion that both you and I did, but I'm not going to just send them there blind.
Sure. I mean, because you heard the arguments in the IGLO video. I truly believe what I said there. There's people that really dive into their investments and know what they're investing in, but the majority, at least of the American public,
sure,
they do exactly what I'm talking about with Pokemon, right? So there's no different. They get handed a 401k sheet. They go down and say, okay, this fund has been open since this date. It's returned this over 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. I'm going to invest in this fund. They have no clue what they're investing in. All they did was look at the performance over the last however many years. How is that different than Pokemon? It's not.
Because it's an actively managed fund. It's asking a question. If that same person was like, hey, PK, what should I buy for $1,000? Or if they were like, hey, PK, do you think it's a good decision if I gave this $1,000 to Alex or to Dan and let them manage this? And then I would lean towards that's probably the safer bet, because at that point, it's an actively managed fund, where that's why the average Joe Smo investing in his 401k and can't tell you if he's an international or something that mimics an S&P or small cap or large cap, and they have no clue. They don't even know what the managerial fees of their 401k are, and they're probably don't understand. It's like, the stock market returns 12% a year. How come my returns are only 8%? They don't realize that they're just getting destroyed by like administrative fees on their 401ks. Like, still, that is still an active fund. And I'm fine with them putting the money in there. It's the same way as if somebody handed you 1,000. I feel way more comfortable with him handing you 1,000, because you can manage that money. Now, somebody going in blind to this hobby, how many? I think we know, but you know how many people come into this hobby and they've never owned a booster box until like a year into this hobby? They're buying collection boxes and check lane blisters, and they're going to Target, and they're going to Walmart, and they're GameStops, and they're buying on the secondary market, and they're paying crazy exorbitant prices at LGSs, and they're buying the same shit we are, different products. We're buying booster boxes. So the average person, I would be very hesitant, because in Pokemon, in the last couple years, if you put your money in the wrong product, you lost money. Shining Fates is a great example. You could during the time when Shining Fates was released, you could have stale man Shining Fates. Look at what it's selling for at pre-release: $120, $130 confirmed pre-sales. Charizard set, Eevee. Everybody loves Evolutions. Beautiful ETB box artwork. We just came off of Hidden Fates at the time. Hidden Fates, we saw it rocket up to 300, settle at 150, like way above MSRP. Shining Fates came off of the biggest hype in the Pokemon's history, coming off of the Logan Paul, coming off of 2020, early 2021. Everybody loves Shining Fates. You could have steelman the shit out of Shining Fates. What happened? It got demolished by reprints, to the point today you could still go on PokemonCenter.com and buy Shining Fates, even though it had everything going for it. Shining Pokemon, blah, blah, blah. Look at Shining Legends. Look at what that did. Look at Hidden Fates. And if you bought the wrong product, you got destroyed. So I would have felt real bad.
Bought the wrong price, Mauricio.
What?
Bought at the wrong price.
Well, even if you bought it at MSRP, you're like, look at this. Everybody's pre-ordering this Shining Fates ETB at 120. I got mine at $49.99. Look at how stupid all these guys are. This is an investment put in away for 5 years, 5-year timeline.
Hold on, this question goes along with what you're saying. So let's bring this up too. Because I get this all the time. I did want to respond to this, and you can give your response too. But Vinny Does Live says, people don't understand. You will all have a liquidity issue in the future when it comes to selling your sealed stuff. So I'll ask you, but how you've had experience in this hobby a long time too. I've never had liquidity issues selling anything. Now, I've made a video about it. Just like PK just said, if you're going to go out and buy all this random junk from everywhere, and this blister, that tin, this collection box, and you have all this crazy stuff laying around, yeah, you might have liquidity issues. If you're collecting, modern PSA 7s and 8s or whatever, I mean, binder collections, it's very hard to sell that. I agree. But now, if you have booster boxes, the market may go up and down, but you can literally auction off a booster box, and it's going to go within a range of the full market price pretty much every single time. So in my mind, if you can throw something at auction in a 7-day auction and it's going to end around market price, that's liquid. If you're having booster boxes, if you're collecting like the most sought after PSA 10s or whatever, or even 9s, a lot of the cards in each era, you're not going to have a liquidity issue. You can auction them at any time. They're going to go relatively around, even during when the downturn was going, the prices were coming down. But if you would have auctioned off during that time, they were going relatively what the market was as it was going down. They were going for less, but they were still selling. They were liquid. And so I think the people who have liquidity issues, they're just in the wrong items. I would question what you're buying.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I have no clue what he's talking about, because Pokemon has this beautiful thing, and it's forced liquidity. You start an auction at a penny. You will force the liquidity of that, because if I see something with 2 minutes left and it's 50% below market, guess what? I'm a buyer. Alex is the one bidding against me. If you want to force that liquidity, we will bid it up until there's no longer margin for us. But if it's selling for 50% below, that's not possible because everybody would want to buy it because we don't have liquidity issues. So we would be willing to sit on it,
Well, then there's this belief of like everyone is somehow going to sell everything at the same time. It's like, well, everyone's not selling at the same time because everyone's not buying at the same time. Like maybe you graded your own cards and so you have a margin built in. You're going to sell them for a profit. That person bought those graded cards at a certain price. Unless they come into a life circumstance or they just want to like sell their collection because they're done with it, they're not going to sell till those are higher. Like same with the boxes. If I bought Lost Origin, at $100, $110 and I may want to sell now at 200, maybe the person I sell to, they're going to buy at 200. Well, now they're going to hold it for the future until it goes up. So it's like people are always buying in and selling at different stages. It's not like everyone out there, the whole hobby buys the box at 90 and everyone holds it until $400. Everyone's got to sell at different times. They want to sell at different times. They move the money here, move the money there. I just think people use these arguments as like some sort of like gotcha moment, but there's never been liquidity issues in the past 10 years in this hobby.
Yeah. So the only thing like oversupply of too many investors, what that's really going to hurt the market in the long term is just going to be stagnation of that product at certain points. Because if it, like Alex mentioned, my price to sell might be different than his, might be different than you watching at home. So as the price hits that price point, whatever you want to sell it at, then yeah, you can see product trickle onto the market periodically. But Alex is right. Like it's not going to all dump at once. But when you have people constantly like call it dumping product or selling product into the market at different price points, every time that happens, it is going to it's like a ladder going up. It's going to stagnate it every time that more and more product hits the market. But
yeah, Vinny, I got to push you, man, to not can you put dates on this? Because people have been saying this for years and years now. So 5 and 10 years from when, because I was hearing this back in 2019. So it's already been 5 years. So I guess 10 years would be like 5 years from now. Or are you saying 5 to 10 years from now? Like, let's put a date on it so we know when we get there and it's still liquid, we can say you were wrong, right? Like there's got to be a point where you stop kicking the can down the road and saying eventually it's going to become illiquid because it just hasn't happened.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely will be products. Your PSA 6 fail because you missed a debt. 5 to 10 years, you're going to have liquidity issues with certain items, but as long as you're not doing terrible, I mean, you might have a little issues with selling fees and stuff on certain products. Like mainly me and Alex talk about booster boxes, but some of these special collection boxes and stuff, there might be a play where you have to break down these products and sell the packs individually because you don't want to pay the shipment on these. And that is going to be where I call it cannibalizing down products. So you're going to be cannibalizing promos, packs. It's going to be a lot of work for you, but you'll still have the liquidity in it. It won't be as nice.
Right. Yeah. Pokey Gaga just keeps them coming. Appreciate you, man. Look at Rudy and his investments. There's a reason he's so bullish on steel product. Obviously, diversification beats all. Rudy needs to be on someone's podcast to end the debate. He walks the walk. I've never seen Rudy do a podcast. I've seen him with some of his buddies or with MetaZoom. I've never seen him on an actual live stream. I don't think he does that.
Maybe one day, but have you reached out to Rudy?
I was part of his Patreon, but never reached out about YouTube.
Yeah, I threw out that email, asked him to come on. No response. So
did you really? You threw it out there?
Oh, yeah, I've thrown out a lot. Oh, you should see some of the emails, some of the ridiculous emails I've sent to some people trying to get them on. So, I mean, what's quote Michael Scott from The Office, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, Wayne Gretzky?
It's true. I mean, it's true. Did you see any? I'm still scrolling down.
I haven't been looking at the chat.
Okay.
I'm afraid to look at your chat.
No, I mean, it's nothing bad. People are just it's legitimate conversations.
So you got Basic Trader in the chat.
Yes, sir.
Speaking of base set booster box, let's get our hands on Basic Trader's base set box.
Vinny's still coming at me. Alex lost all his money in the stock market a couple of years back. He posted a video talking about it. You cannot listen to him, people. I did not lose all my money. I tried to day trade and it didn't work out. I lost about $30,000.
Yeah,
that was not all of my money.
You could probably never. I mean, could you day trade in Pokemon? It would be tough because
it's almost like what PSA grading is.
Yeah, especially with eBay Vault. That will be interesting. 24-hour potential turnaround times into the vault. So
What?
see,
I thought,
Alex,
I think, is it over?
see, this is why you should have watched my interview with Nat Turner, because then you would know what I'm saying is eventually their goal is when you submit cards to PSA, as soon as your grades get released, you could put those into the vault to auction with hopefully a 24-hour turnaround. So,
But there's fees, right? Okay.
well, yeah, the selling fees the same way as if you did any consignment service. Yeah.
So let me ask you your opinion on that. Do you think eBay Vault going away is a good or a bad thing?
It depends. I mean, are 0% selling fees going away? Does that make me happy? No, but come on. In reality, too good to be true. 0% selling fees now. They were going to say 3%. So, like, yeah, obviously that hurts because all my $250 cards, I have to either auction them to try to force the liquidity or pull them out of the auction or just, YOLO it into the PSA vault. So, yeah, that sucks. But for like the average person who does it, I mean, how many people really deal in $250 plus cards? And if they are, how many are doing it in volume? Probably not as many as the people dealing with the lower end slabs. So the people dealing with the lower end slabs, 16% selling fees instantly from one of the biggest eBay accounts out there. PSA, instant, like your grades get put out, you put them to auction. For the lower end, game changer, huge. Like,
I mean, I think it's a great thing.
yeah,
Um,
fantastic. I think it's the
no, I mean,
best
I
thing
think it's a
to
great
do.
thing. The eBay Vault, the 0%, those low fees went away because
Well, that
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why.
selfishly, that I don't love the thought of that.
Well, no, I'll tell you why I feel that way. It's because it'd be great if everyone using it would have just kept it like at market price and just made way more money. But what always had to happen is same thing that happens with grading. It's the race to the bottom, and everyone started to compete because they knew they didn't have any fees, so they started lower and lower the prices, which artificially dropped the market on cards. And so I think this is going to artificially rise the market back on cards because those 0% selling fees are away. So all the vault people are now going to raise their prices back up to what should have been full price. So I think it's going to help the market. It's going to hurt collectors, but it's going to help the market.
That's a very interesting take that you think higher. Yeah, I mean, I
It
guess
forces the prices to be higher.
if you're really squeezing margins like that, like you're describing, where like you can't be lowest listed, you have to have higher end, you have to have higher margins. Like I can see how that would be super beneficial for you, but like a
Well,
lot
you
of
probably saw it when you
the
like
day
looked
to
at
day is low
listings.
margins.
Well, when you looked at listings, you could see like if you sorted by lowest first, you always saw like the bottom like 5 people. It always said like in the vault, in the vault, in the vault, in the vault,
Sure.
and it's like, and then you look at like the first person that wasn't in the vault, and it was like 10% higher, and it's like, oh, so they're just like eating away all that money they would have saved by not paying fees, and they're just throwing it for a cheaper price. Like, what's the point? It's the same thing, right?
I like zero fees. I don't know. I mean, a lot of Pokemon. Listen, it's Pokemon. It's low. It's listed, right? So it's just part of the game.
Yeah, I don't know.
If you want it to be low and listed, and you want to compete against the vault, and you want to sell the card, just sell it. Like send it there. And I get what you're saying, like, but the problem is even those people that are not getting 0% fees and now they're selling it different.
Here, a perfect example would be
I'm
if
struggling with this
let's
one. I'm going
say
to be honest with you.
let's say this. Let's say PSA, CGC, Beckett, all the grading companies simultaneously raise their grading fee to 25. Do you think that would simultaneously raise the market on cards, on new
No,
cards?
I mean,
Of course it would, because people,
new cards. Oh, you said
yeah,
new
because
cards.
everyone grading their new cards, they
Yeah, yeah.
wouldn't list it lower than they'd want to make a profit, so they'd undercut
Sure.
to a certain point,
Yep.
but
Okay.
you wouldn't see as low. So it's like I feel like it's the same thing as the vault going away. It's just going to artificially make people ask more for their cards.
Yeah, but we saw that happen with PSA, right? Like when the PSA turnaround times went crazy, we saw every slab that was the best time in the history of this hobby. You could just send anything and it was selling. So yeah, when turnaround times are crazy, when prices are expensive to grade your cards, and yeah, we definitely saw that happen. A perfect example is we talked about Champions Path today. Think about the real early PSA 10 Charizard Vs from Champions Path. $450 in a PSA 10. That is a card today. The ETB promo is like a $35 card in a 10. It was selling for $450, but turnaround times are crazy. So in order to get those cards back, you had to pay those higher tiers for graded. So you might be spending $100. So you better be a good pre-grader.
Is that the most PSA 10s in the hobby?
Yeah, I think it's like 65,000 or something. Which, if you want to talk about the hobby and be like, PK, point to anything in this hobby and say, give me your most bullish take. And I could point to that one card and say, there's one of these cards or 10 of these cards sell every single day for $35. And it doesn't matter how many sell in a week or a month or a year. There's still somebody buying these, and there'll be like 20 bids at auction. Yeah, they're $35, but that's a sign we are in a strong hobby.
I agree. Celestial TCG, this says for both of you, but I think I'm probably going to let PK answer it. Said, how much product do you think is actually still out there for older sets? I remember CTR mentioning a guy having a pallet of Team Up. I'm not sure how serious he was. He seemed pretty serious, but I don't know, man. Like, what's your feeling on the whole older sets? How much is out there market?
I mean, how far back are we going? We'll just do it. Just say WotC, EX, Nintendo, Diamond and Pearl, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Black and White, or before that, Platinum, Black and White. Every single one of those sets, it doesn't matter which one, there's 1,000 of each. And then within those, the conversation does get like convoluted, especially when you get to like Skyridge, how many of those exist and stuff. But as for Super Modern, Sun and Moon, there's a lot of it. Sword and Shield, there's a really lot of it. A really lot for Sword and Shield is I just don't know if people understand what a really lot of stuff is. There's a lot of Sword and Shield that's in people's closets. So
true.
Now, as for these older sets, now he mentioned Team Up. You got to go individual set by set, but because he asked Team Up's a great example of, so think about your last 4 sets of Sun and Moon. So Team Up, Unbroken Bonds, Unified Minds, Cosmic Eclipse. Team Up was primed and ready for a reprint. The problem is, with those 4 sets, right when they were getting ready to be reprinted, like Millennium Print Group and all these, COVID hit. So all the printers got shut down. These were not like necessity or what was the word they used for the businesses they had to keep open? Like restaurants and stuff and gas stations.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I can't remember now either.
Yeah, whatever those, like essential workers. Okay, there you go. Millennium Print Group and printing Pokemon cards was not essential workers. So because all those printers shut down, there was a huge lag where they would have probably been doing a lot of these reprints, because you have to put into perspective, when was Sword and Shield base released, right? So when was Sword and Shield base released? Sword and Shield base was like February. So you have November, Cosmic Eclipse comes out, and then nothing for December, January, February, when Sword and Shield base comes out, March. And so February 2020, Sword and Shield base gets released. March of 2020, printers turn off. We all love print to go burr. Printers went nothing. So because that happened, there was no reprints of a lot of these sets that were primed, and they, in any other scenario, Team Up. Well, Unbroken Bonds did get a reprint. So Unified Minds got a small reprint, but like 3-pack boxes. It was put out in like Walmart specialty, and then Cosmic Eclipse never got a reprint. So when you ask a question like Team Up, there's not as much Team Up that exists, but the market shows it, because look at what Team Up prices are. Sorry, no, I'm ranty.
No, I mean, no, I guess like Jack's question, does it feel like the sealed case is becoming crowded trade? The fact that ultra-modern cases already have a premium is an indication of huge increase of case investments. I mean, I think it's relative, right? Like, I mean, you could go around a shopping mall near you and ask everyone you see if they invest in Pokemon, and odds are everyone's going to say no.
Yeah.
So it's more crowded, but is it overcrowded? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, like if you ask everyone, in a shopping mall, if they know Pokemon or open Pokemon cards or know kids like the open Pokemon cards or have kids that open Pokemon cards, a lot of them are going to say, you're going to find a lot of yeses. You're going to find very few that say, oh, I have a case of booster boxes in my closet. Like very few. Now, the people that do, they're probably going to have multiple cases. They're a good size investment. So, and their investments are more now than they used to be. But it's like the same question. Like the demand is more than it used to be. Like I don't know. It's such a hard question because it's just our opinion, right?
Well, where it boils down to, as long as everything keeps going up, everything's going to be sunshine and roses. The second things start to go down, then that's when it gets dark. And like, I hate to do this, but we're going to do it. We're going to compare Pokemon to MetaZoo. So when all the shit hit the fan and MetaZoo filed for bankruptcy, the first thing that happened was everybody that was sitting on MetaZoo sold it. Is that going to happen in Pokemon? Absolutely not. Not a lot of hills I'm willing to die on. That's one of them. Not going to happen. But if something happened where the demand dropped off a cliff, very similar to like MetaZoo, like it doesn't have to be to that extreme, but some sort of scenario, that's when you would have the people who panic. It's just like people panic sell all the time, different things. This would be no different. We saw it happen in a trading card game in the last year.
Season Salt, appreciate the gift and memberships, man. Let's think. What else do we got here that people want to take? Did you have anything else you wanted to expand on? You were thinking about?
No, man. I think this was a good conversation. I don't think this was a conversation a lot of people wanted. I think they wanted the FU back and forth, conversation. But sorry if we let people.
I mean, guys, I see a lot of those comments. Like, I don't know what you guys want. Like, I've already admitted, I think we both admitted, I've definitely talked my fair share of, shit, whether it be Discords or whether it be the YouTube videos. I've definitely said things. I don't hide from anything.
I told you at CollectorCon in Charlotte when you were going real bullish on Pokemon Go, I wasn't even going live that night, and I would go live that night just to talk shit on Pokemon Go because I knew I had a good feeling you were wrong about that set. So yeah, I told you that. I 100%, as soon as you would make a positive Pokemon Go video, I would come on the same night and just shit on Pokemon Go purposely. So yeah, I am not innocent in this at all.
Dude, it's so funny how things work in this hobby too. That was around the time where I got a job, a different job. And so I took a break from YouTube for a couple months. And Eli, Pokemon USA, was telling me he was having people reach out saying that Pokemon Go bankrupted me and I left the hobby from it and stuff. It got wild. I definitely took a little bit of loss on Pokemon Go for sure, though.
Yeah, but that's the thing too about this hobby and the nuances. When you take a loss, or I take a loss, or anybody takes a loss, it's never that bad. And Charlie Herlocker says this all the time, and I love this quote. But he says, if you're not taking any losses, then you're probably not taking enough risks in this hobby. And some losses are okay. No one can time everything perfectly. I know you don't care for Scott Pratt, but Scott Pratt says, I got 2 balls, neither one of them are crystal. You can learn a lot.
It's just all relative. I learned so much in this hobby when I started from Scott. I started following his channel back in 2016. Obviously I learned a lot on E4 when I was on there, and when I was really diving deep and learning all the ins and outs of all the different releases and prints and all that. And so it's just, I guess that, it's it's kind of where the whole cabal thing comes from. It got to a point where there was just subsects or groups that really were against, I feel like, people, talking favorably of modern, pushing modern. And I guess kind of what you said, it was kind of I guess that it was more the content people didn't like, of the hype and the top 10 and all the stuff going to the moon. I think I'm coming to see that it was more of the hatred towards that and less of the hatred towards people just investing in it. But I guess I kind of
aged like milk. Anybody who put a top 10 best investments of 2020 probably lost, especially if it was singles, especially modern singles. They were terrible. Now sealed product, but that's it. That's why I showed all these charts. Product goes up over time. Nobody decoded this. This is just the way shit went on forever,
Here's the real question from Weedle. Do you have any modern cards in your collection that you just like?
Yeah, I made a top 10 video, just like my favorite cards, which one of
I
my
just made a whole collection video, guys, like on my channel. Like it says, like I reveal my graded slab collection. So I did the same thing.
Yeah, I have I love the Sleepy Pika from Lost Origin. I love the Mimikyu from Brilliant Stars, which if you look at the Mimikyu from Brilliant Stars, recent TCG player price, it's like right around $30 for the Mimikyu watching TV from Brilliant Stars.
That's what you got it for?
No, I said that's one of my favorite cards.
Oh, that's all it costs right now?
$30 for a raw card for that.
Oh, for raw. Okay, for raw. I got you. Okay, that's high. Yeah.
Yeah. On TCG player, that card's pull up the TCG player chart for the Mimikyu from.
Yeah, they're all moving, man. It's it's crazy.
Everything's crazy. This hobby's crazy.
Friends of the night. Can you guys talk about first edition basic jungle fossil? Do you think 10 years it will still be the base set? Right now, modern hot, but feeling everyone realize vintage is king. Well, it'll always be the base set. It'll always be the original. I don't know. Like we have different opinions on this. Like my opinion, I think there will be. I can't. I give like a random percentage, like 10, maybe 15% of all vintage mid-era cards that will end up doing well over time. But I just don't see it being like a rising tide raises all ships again like before. I don't think you can go buy all the random hollows in every set, all the hits from every set, no matter how unpopular Pokemon is, and all of them are going to go up like before. I don't see that happening. So yeah, I think you can still do well if you are kind of selective with what you pick up.
Yeah, but that's the same conversation. The same conversation of any timeline. Like it's just like you're not going to buy a random hollow from Evolving Skies.
Right.
Yeah. It's always going to be the hits. It's always going to be the chase cards. But some modern cards, yeah, they're going to do well. Some vintage cards are going to do really well, and some are going to do really poorly. The problem is we saw such a huge run up in vintage, and we just saw a lot of these cards just price correct. And the problem is we saw a price correction because a lot of people got in the hobby and they didn't know what they were buying. Sorry.
Here, I have a question. You're a condition rarity guy. So I have a question. For the cards you hold of WotC, do you go with the higher grade, or do you value the first edition stamp more? Like, would you, if the cards were the same price or around the same price, would you go with an unlimited 10 or a first edition 9?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Unfortunately, I hate to say this, but I would go with the condition. So like an unlimited 10 over.
Which, I mean, some have outperformed. I mean, I think a lot of them outperformed the first edition 9s during the boom.
Yeah, I mean, just grading WotC 10s is so tough. If anybody out there has tried to grade WotC 10s, it is so hard. You are so spoiled for modern. Like, people don't realize it's so much easier. If you've really tried to grade WotC 10s, it's really, really tough, especially if you're not a maniac in opening packs. Because, yeah,
why didn't you ask Nat Turner that, man?
Open them what?
You should have asked him. You should have just, as a fun question at the end, asked, "Is there such a thing as population control?"
No, I have my,
because you've been grading, longer than I have, but I remember grading back
100% population control. I see it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember grading back in 17, 18, like back when I started when like it was the 4 certs, and graded tons of WotC 10s. Almost impossible now.
Good for you, man. I very, very minimal. The last WotC 10, last base set 10 I graded was that Mewtwo, unlimited Mewtwo. That was the last.
When I say lots, I mean like, you open a box, you get 16 hollows, or 12 hollows, you get like maybe 3 or 4 10s out of that, like, which I think is a lot.
It depends. Sometimes.
Well, I'm saying that's why I used to get, like, I have old orders I can show, like from like 2017, 18, stuff like that. Like, but now I feel like there's a very real population control where it's just not possible.
Yeah. Look at first edition Charizard. How many first edition Charizards have been pulled in the last 4 years with first edition base set boxes? We're still at 123 in the PSA pop for PSA 10. 123. Starting in 2020, we were at 121. 4 years with a crazy amount open. We've added 2 to the pop report.
Yeah.
And a lot of those cards were graded by one person, you know? Like,
I agree. No, I agree. It seems like that's a big benefit you could talk about for vintage is very few are going to be added to the pop report because of that.
Yeah, man, we could wrap up. I feel like this was it was as
hold on, PK. Medizu is dead. What the heck? I bought packs from your box break the other day. Just kidding. Still chasing the Mothman.
Yeah. So I did my first ever box break. I never done a box break. I never sold anything on my channel before, but I want to do my first one, and I want to like turn it into a meme.
It's
so
addicting. I'll warn you, it's addicting.
What was that?
It's addicting. I'll warn you.
For anybody that doesn't know, I was always like super, super harsh and super, super negative towards MetaZoo. I had debates with Basic Trainer, had debates with Dan Ketchum Collectibles, and I want to do a box break and I want to do a dead TCG, but you can't open up a $10 booster box of a dead TCG. What do you sell packs for? Like 25 cents. So I did MetaZoo and it was a lot of fun. It ended up being like a 5.5 hour long live.
So it went well.
I did ask Nat on my first. So Nat Turner's been on my channel twice. He was on about 9 months ago, and then he was on recently. And I did ask him about pack grading because it does definitely feel like PSA has changed their standards when it comes to PSA pack grading. Like, used to be able to get 10s all the time. It was like 10 or bust.
Are you talking about when they used to bend them?
Yeah. But now, pack grading has gotten way harder. Like, super, super recently.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we can wrap it up, guys. Appreciate all the questions and everything. Thank you all for keeping it civil in the chat as we did on here. I don't know what everyone was expecting. Sorry to disappoint. Like, honestly, man, like, you know, I left all this stuff in the past. Like I said, back at Collecticon. But no, it was nice to get on here and do this live and just kind of, you know, clear the air, a breath of fresh air, move forward from here. But just like I told you then, man. Yeah.
You put the challenge out there. Can somebody explain to me why base set booster boxes were $800 when I got back in the hobby? It's not an easy answer. You got to go through everything. Hopefully I got to the point where like a lot of people got back in. It went crazy at the end, but it was a slow, gradual, and it was a long thing. And hopefully anybody out there watching this, other content creators who say 100% of products after 5 years are higher than MSRP, maybe they'll just change their wording a little bit and say most products or all modern products, at least like, and unfortunately those nuances, just use wording. And, you know, so like I said, tomorrow night, I'm going to be going through this. I'm going to be looking at all these prices, and I hope you do a video too, because you know what? A lot of this in here, a lot of these prices are going to reinforce a lot of the things that I already know and a lot of the things that you say all the time, because it's true. Like, certain products perform better than others. And if you can show this to people and make it make sense, it reinforces your argument. But you just can't exclude information, you know? But I'm looking forward. I want to see how you tackle this. Why don't you go on this? Use the Wayback Machine, type in the Hills thing, go look at some of this stuff, and then give people perspective, you know? Perspective is worth a lot. And especially for anybody that wants to do Pokemon the way we do Pokemon, is you got to know it all. You got to be well-rounded. You can't be surface level on any of this shit.
Do you think it matters?
Everything matters. I don't think there's a single thing in this hobby that doesn't matter. It's a sum of all the parts.
So you truly think like data 2014 back is going to be like useful for the market going forward?
Yep. The same way as when you were on that live with OK J Love and Opossum Bud, and they said, "Oh, but you're bringing XY into it," and you said to him, "Yeah, but I think XY is important." The same way you feel about that is the same way I feel about the history of this hobby.
That's fair.
It's no different. It's just your timeline, your timeline goes back 10 years. My timeline just doubles that, goes back 20. I'm not going, I'm just doubling how far back. You go back 10, I go back 20. I think
Okay.
it all matters.
All
And
right. That's fair.
if you understand where we came from, where we are, you can understand where we're going. And I think it's a sum of all the parts.
All right. I guess last question is, have you, after doing all this, like, has it like added to or changed any way that you're looking at making plays in the hobby or investing in the hobby going forward?
No, this is stuff I already knew. This is stuff
Okay.
I
Well, I
had to
mean,
like
do you think
present.
it's like affected the way that you like make plays, or like as deep, like going in deep on certain things, or like
Yeah.
going in like as hard or harder than you would have? Like, do you think it affected anything?
Oh yeah. Unfortunately, it's made me overly bullish on way too many aspects of this hobby because I know the progression that came, and I really, really struggle at finding negatives to the future of this hobby. But because I'm bringing in all these data points from all this different stuff, and unfortunately, I always get to like, we're just at the cusp. And I talk about this hobby all the time on my channel. I say, for a while, Pokemon was in its infancy. When I brought up those charts, I got to show everyone the infancy. Pokemon is in its teenage angst years right now. We are not in our adult years as a hobby yet. But I'm looking forward to that adult hobby because then we are way more mainstream. And I look around and I see how sports is. And I look at sports, I look at the history of the sports from, you know, our childhood was 99 Pokemon. Sports people was 1950s, right? For sports. Obviously, it goes back older to your T206s and your Cracker Jack box,
Yeah.
shoeless Joe Jacksons. But what happened for that first initial generation of sports card collectors? They in their 20s, they went crazy in the 1970s for baseball until they were in their 50s, and we saw the junk wax of baseball. But what happened? Those 1952 Mickey Mantle rookies, they sold for all-time highs. And then as the hobby kept going, that hobby kept growing. More and more people entered into it, became a more well-established hobby until the point where that PSA 10 Mickey Mantle rookie that sold for $100,000 now today is valued at 12 million
Yeah.
because it's the hobby's established in itself, and we are not there yet, but we are getting there. And I see a lot of correlations. And the beautiful thing about Pokemon too is Pokemon has now become cross generational. When I was
Oh,
a kid and
absolutely.
you were a kid in 99, wasn't cross generational. Yeah, there was the one Gary King Pokemon out there, the one out of the millions of people, there was one. But we grew up, we had kids, it's become cross generational. We have different timelines that are people are going to rediscover this hobby who don't know shit about base set. They came in Diamond and Pearl or Heart Gold Soul Silver or one of the platinums or the black and whites, like, and then there's going to be a group that grew up as kids with XY. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe they're in high school. When I was in high school, I wasn't collecting Pokemon, but it took me a few years out of high school, out of college, and then I got back in the Pokemon. We can see a constant funneling of people into this hobby. And as long as the net gain is larger than the net loss, which you're always going to have people re-enter and leave. But as long as more and more people stay, that net gain keeps going higher and higher, we're in a great position.
Well,
So
that's why I said like kind of right now is like you look at the whole market. I mean, you're having
yeah,
people like share all the time like these vintage cars that are moving, right? And then you have XY cars that are still moving, like Sun and Moon's, rebounding from the tag teams that went down. You have Sword and Shield going ridiculously crazy. You're starting to have Scarlet Violet boxes move. It's like the whole hobby is moving up, meaning that means money isn't going from here to here in the hobby. That means new money is continuing to pour in the hobby to raise everything everywhere. So like that's a huge plus.
so yeah, that could be the situation where new money is pouring in, but you can have two things happening at once, and it could be equally beneficial if you have tons of money coming in. But more importantly, the people that are holding on to product aren't selling their product too. So once they absorb it, they keep it. It's not getting flushed back onto the market. So if that happens, you have like Like that is a catalyst too that can't be like ignored. The people holding on and not selling back into the market, because that is just a positive market sentiment at that point. If people believe in this stuff enough to hold on to it,
Yeah.
people are fickle. The second the shit hits the fan, people will dump.
Yeah.
And there'll be people there buying. I'll be buying. You'll probably be buying. There'll be some people there buying, but you can only buy so much. But if that shit never hits a fan, it's
True.
really, I really struggle with the negative. That's why I feel like sometimes you always thought, like, I don't know what you thought about how I viewed the Pokemon market, but I'm overly bullish on a lot of this shit.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. I know Dan's overly bullish too.
Oh, Dan's a big Pokemon investor, always been. But the only difference is I'm not going to ignore stuff that happened in the past, and I'm not going to write off stuff. And absorb everything. Take everything in. Find correlations where they exist. Make correlations if they don't. Enjoy this hobby. Like, this is not, I know you do Pokemon full time, and that's got to be tough on you. I appreciate you staying up late to do this live.
This is what I do.
Yeah, I don't do Pokemon full time. I got a full time job. I do Pokemon as a hobby because I enjoy it. The same way some people watch TV, watch movies. I do this because it gives me enjoyment. As long as I could extract enjoyment out of this hobby and potentially into perpetuity, into foreverness, whatever that might be for me, if I could keep extracting joy out of this hobby, why would I not keep doing this, you know?
I 100% agree, man.
Yeah.
All right, we'll call it there, guys. Appreciate everyone stopping by. I think we should be good moving forward. So stop trying to bait out arguments in the future, and we'll both do our best to not do that as well. So
Yeah.
I don't have it linked right now. I'll go ahead and link PK's channel at the top of the description if you guys want to check his out. It's Poke Knowledge Cards, and
I am looking forward to looking through some of this data I showed you for the way back. You don't have to go back, but just do. Now, I did 2004, the 2015. I want to see you do it now. Do 2015 the present. Show people what it was like when you got back in 2015. Be like, snapshot, baby. This is what Phantom Forces is selling for, $88. This is what it jumped up to in 2019, $700, you know, and explain it to them, because then the same way as I tried to explain what happened up to 2014, you can now explain to them, why did Flashfire and Phantom Forces, why did they go up the way they did? Look at when it was available on Hills. Oh shit, this stuff wasn't available that long. There was a ton of demand for this. Great sets, and you will be able to bring so much to people. And hopefully nobody asks you, like, why does that matter? Because I think it all matters. And you can do that.
Yeah, I mean, I always need content, so I'm open for it.
Yeah. I'm looking forward. I can't wait to see how you tackle 2015 to present, you know? How do you interpret what happened? And explain to people. You get to show them Pokemon Go. Everyone always says there was hype in Pokemon Go. There was a ton of buying. You get to show them now. This shit sold out. These were the sets that sold out. Look at what happened.
The game Pokemon Go.
Yeah, Pokemon. Yeah, the game. There was a trickle effect into trading cards.
Oh, absolutely. That was huge.
Pokemon Go came out in July of 2016. You can show this was the market in January of 2015. July, this is when Pokemon Go came out. Let's see the impact of it. It's very visible. Boom, it's there. You don't have to, you know, all this shit's valuable. Now, how do people take this data? I don't know. I love it all. I want it all. I absorb it all.
Yeah.
I think about it all. I know, I get ranty.
No, it's all helpful, man. Every bit of data that gets put out there is helpful. So I'm with you. I'm with you. Anything last you want to say?
Nope. Guys, like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, all the YouTube.
Yep.
Click on this video.
All right, guys, we're out. See you.